experts and individuals who understand the intensifying cycle of economic, societal, and government upheaval, so you can stay ahead of the changes in our world and keep your family safe. Fortunately for us, we can recognize that we're at the precipice, a point in history where we can all see the cycle changing. Where we go from here is up to us. So let's start the conversation, and welcome to the show.
And good afternoon, good morning, good evening to everyone. Another week spins by, and have you noticed it seems to be focusing on the aliens now? And we're going to be bringing Craig Simpson with us from Radiant Creators. Just sent him a link to join us here on Skype. Ransom's with me again, and you know what? Very exciting. We were invited to the Tim Pool podcast. He flew us up there, got into D.C., and then they arranged transpo out to their studios, way out, clandestine location, way out in the farm countryside of whatever state that would have been. But anyway, we had a chance to talk with Brian from Into Thin Air that was on the panel with us. Can we control the weather? Can we modify the hurricanes and everything that we see? Not really sure. But that was our conversation. You know, really revolving around everybody seemed to be grabbing, at least today in our world. I'm at the point of saying, you know, I understand they can do some geoengineering. I get it. They can do a little bit of heart bending in the ionosphere. I understand that. But every single weather event is not man-made. All right, this is getting to the absurd of, okay, the wind blew 10 miles an hour faster than normal. It was man-made. It rained a tenth of an inch over the average. It was man-made. You know, everything has got to be not government-controlled weather manipulation. Because you got to think at that point, then every government on the planet would have to be in on it. And it would have to be a continuous operation for the entire planet. But you realize how big our planet is. Because I widened out on a couple of those hurricanes, and it's literally a dot on the face of the planet. That Milton hurricane, the Helene, when you really looked at it from the wide view of the planet from a satellite, and don't get me started with the flat earth people, stop right there too, you know, satellites, jeez. Oh man, everything you say about science anymore is like, there's a huge crowd on the other side that's like, it's all this, it's all that. But yeah, it is what it is. So anyway, tonight Ransom's with me. Ransom, how you doing? I got Craig Simpson right here on the show with us.
Hello.
So
how's it going?
Yeah, good. Craig, can you hear us? He's saying, should we hear anything? The answer is yes, you should. But anyway, take it over while I get Craig in here. And again, the whole point I wanted to go on is now they're feeding us aliens. All this continuity government planning's in. I've been talking about the cometary bombardment and the meteorite and meteors that are going to come screaming into the planet as we move around over these next months across the face of the sun into December, January. Whoa, we're going to get pelted with a lot of space debris. We're going to be the only planet in the entire solar system in front of the sun, with every planet almost directly behind us for a few months. Is this continuity government planning really a mask for that event? But they're pointing to politics because they don't want to spook the planet. Just asking for a friend. So Ransom, hope you can answer that.
I think they're lining up all kinds of, things to try to fundamentally change your reality right now. And there is a alien, and we've been talking about it for a long time, and that is AI, right? And, just a quick glance through the headlines on any day, and you'll see revolutionary things and ideas being pushed on you. And I've talked about it many times. We've talked about these ideas, how we would get to a certain point where they involve AI in every aspect of the human domain. And for example, I have one article from The Guardian up right now. AI meditation tool may help reduce culture war rifts, say researchers. So think about that. We're going to now have, because, humans can't figure out what they believe. And now that we live in a time where we've accepted that there's two realities, two sets of facts, and depending on what side of those facts you are, you're not going to research much further. There's studies out talking about, how most people try to find what they agree with or what they already believe. But it doesn't matter because now we're going to introduce a third party, a mediator, so to speak. And I've talked about this on the small scale like this, and then on the larger scale, when it comes to running government, and they're already trying to introduce, I've shown on here where they've talked about having the AI basically be mayors of towns, and eventually they'll get to a point that where they say that humans, by nature and as they are flawed and therefore biased, racist, xenophobic, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, all the way on there, out there. And the only way to take care of that is to add and introduce a non-biased, non-binary. Oh, excuse me. Maybe it is binary. I don't know. I don't want to throw out any terms there, but it's supposed to be a bias AI that doesn't have these inherent flaws in them. And I'm seeing that across the board from production to decision making. And that's where it really gets crazy because, I've demonstrated on your show and mine. We have machines that can read the literal words out of your brain. We have machines that can tell what kind of feelings you're having. We have machines that can see the physiological changes that are associated with different emotions like guilt or fear and things like that. We also have a machine that could show a picture that it took from inside of your mind. And now we have scientists claiming that you can hook each other up. And not only can you hook each other up, but the AI can assist in transferring messages via the sleep. So it's like that old movie. I don't know if you remember it with Dennis Quaid, really old movie called Dreamscape, where they were going in people's dreams and assassinating them. And I'm sure a lot of people more real or remember the more recent kind of version of the same thing, which was Inception, which was kind of the same idea where you could penetrate people's dreams. Well, it may not be people, but artificial intelligence seems to be at that point. And it's at the same time as they're taking all our jobs. No, I'm just kidding. But inside Amazon's warehouse, where robots have taken over and cry at humans, but they're loved, so don't worry about it. They're all loved, and it just keeps going like that. Like every industry, all the way down to debanking of America, which is another thing that's happening for different groups where they're being told that they're no longer part of the system and can't take part, and that's basically the social engineering, social credit score type system and metering that we've been talking about for a long time. It is here. They're just doing it with backdoor, assaults kind of on it, a different format than we were expecting, like the Chinese model, but it's still happening. And then we got AI is supposed to be Hollywood's next big thing. So not only are they going to be involved in your government and make decisions based on what the algorithm was programmed and who programmed it, but now we're going to have movies, entertainment, and I pointed out many times that everything from books to presidential speeches, including both of the past recent presidents, have been written by AI. They're now writing articles. They're doing kids' homework, and they're going to be making movies from us. And this is well beyond what a lot of people know, that there's like a movie called Bright that's on Netflix that was written by an AI. It kind of just threw in everything that it thought humans wanted to see. And this is the point that we're getting at. We're going into this complete facade, a total fiction of our reality that is powered by an artificial intelligence that is programmed by some seriously, I'm going to say, slightly evil, but at least biased people that are programming it. And now it's entering into the workforce as a third competitor on top of, you might worry in your country about people from other nations coming and filling the job positions and using the resources that were meant for the citizens of that country. But now we have a third force moving in, which is artificial intelligence and robotics that will slowly seep into every single industry, which it is in real time right now, exponentially replacing human beings, which puts us in a real conundrum And then when you factor in some of the other things we talk about, like the plateau of the population on Earth, the decreasing of fertility from nations. Australia just announced that they're, along with everyone else, are no longer producing Australians at the pace that they're dying. And you're seeing this in the entire Western world. And this is going to be the sales pitch soon, that AI and robotics and complete authoritarian government control by Big Brother, which is now going to be an algorithm, is the option, is the way that everybody can get along, is the way that everything will be fair. And it's like they've just put an algorithm into the systematic reduction and removal of humans from the planet.
And Craig Simpson's joining us. Hope he can hear us. Joining in. You got me, Craig. What's going on tonight?
Well, just hanging out. Happy to be here with David DuByne and Ransom. I am just pretty much getting ready for the apocalypse, like everybody else. Excited to hear how being on Tim Pool went. That's really interesting for sure. Sounds like you got a lot of insight on how that machine works over there, and it's not just 3 or 4 people sitting in a room chatting. And something I have been working on, along with the constant effort towards prepping, is finally got. I'm a bit of a motorhead. I was working on cars and rebuilding engines when I was like 13 years old, and so I just got done getting a partial engine rebuild on a 78 Cherokee Chief, big old 4x4, 4-inch lift, 33-inch tires, and it's just a beast. And definitely was trying my patience, but it took a lot of work to get it kind of back on the road. I sort of had to tow it home. I bought it from somebody, and it's got it started for the first time really, and drove it around the neighborhood tonight. And it's got new brakes, new halfway rebuilt engine. It's got, you name it. There's too much to list. So much work's been done to that. But the idea was, I think it's great if you're a prepper or whoever you are. If you have a newer car, that's absolutely fine. I mean, who doesn't like a new car with the absolutely beautiful, iPhone integrated dashboard? And I mean, I love all that stuff. It's great. I mean, but we do know there are issues with cars, especially after 2021, where they've got geofencing built in, and they have the kill switch built in. And of course, the manufacturers say, well, it's government regulation. We have to put it in. We would never really turn it on. We would never really track you. But, we just have to because of regulations. We have to do that. We never plan on actually turning it on. The government just says that we have to have that there just in case, whatever, So, whether it really happens or not, we do know that our cars are spying on us, our newer cars, that's for sure. I mean, my dealership calls me when my 2017 Cherokee needs an oil change and says, I'm like, how did you guys know? So, I mean, my dealership is spying on me. If they can, I'm sure that the man can. So, one of my little prepper tips, or just something for people to think about, is a classic vehicle like 70s or even the 80s really is incapable of being, watched. So there's no kill switch, no geofencing. There's nobody, monitoring me in my old, 78 Cherokee. And it's quite the, prepper vehicle. I mean, it can go anywhere, do anything. It's badass. It's a lot of fun to drive. And I still have a newer car that I drive around a lot, but I really am ready for when the next thing they turn that geofencing on, God knows what, attach it to your social credit score, or now they decided that you're a bad person, you've broken the law, they're going to turn your car off or tell it to lock its doors and bring you to the pokey, but what if your only crime is wanting to be left alone, so as we all know, the law is not about what's right or wrong. It's about what's legal and illegal. And, so that's one of my little, as we get the show started, one of my little prepper tips. Hey, if you can do it, it's a lot of fun to have a classic vehicle that is just an engine. It smells like gas when you pull it in the garage because it doesn't have a closed fuel system. It's just so beautiful. It's great. If you have the ability, that's great. If not, cars in the mid 80s or even early 90s, up to like almost 2000. A lot of vehicles they may have a computer, but it's really a circuit board, and you can not hack it, but there's so much information online. I actually interviewed somebody in Radiant Creators last night. We talked for almost 2 hours about old school analog metal and new school digital metal, and how if you kind of get into the hot rodding of the computers today, which is just a circuit board, and you can download your little image file and you can like edit it so you have more timing, you've got this and that, you can start to actually get to know how the basic computer works on an older car, and then you could get an extra computer for it out of a junkyard sometime, and your car really gets a longevity, and you have the ability to, even if you don't care about tuning it, you can start to know how the plug you plug into on a modern vehicle to like get the data out of it and such. You can start to look at how do I, work on my own car that may have some technology. How can I download the codes? How can I see how it's running real time? And then also, how can I hot rod it a little bit? How can I understand it? And then, if you are living in the world, well, for one thing, you're going to have a car, whether it's older or a little bit newer, that is kind of surveillance proof. No one's going to turn it off on you. But then also, and of course, I'm not suggesting anyone do anything nefarious. I mean, stay completely legal, do whatever, the cops and the FDA and the WEF tells you to do, right? So stay legal. But I'm just saying, hypothetically, if you begin to know how these things work and you had a modern vehicle that's now watching you, you can just basically tell it to send the man who's watching, the grandma is driving stream, So while you're cruising around in your somewhat hot rodded, newer vehicle like 2020s or something like that, or even early 2000s, mid 2000s, if it's a car that can be monitored, you're going to know how, and then basically you can send them a nice little video stream of your grandmother driving the car around the block over and over and over and over again. So anyway, that's very long-winded, I know, but it's just really a tip. The more we can get analog or kind of halfway analog and somewhat digital with our vehicles, you may find that I tell you what, just like if a lot of things happen and we think may happen, a box of 50 rounds of 22 ammo might buy you a car. You know what I mean? At the same time, having a car that cannot be turned off might buy you a lot. And right now, they're getting harder and harder to come by. But if you have the volition, if you want to do it, a $500, a $3,000, 95 Jeep Cherokee could actually offer you possibly a lot of freedom in the future, especially if the electronic vehicles begin to be, just in case. In myself, I think they may be, but even if not, even if it doesn't happen that our cars are used against us, basically, you'll have had fun. You'll have learned how to hot rod the computer, a basic computer, maybe in a 1995 Cherokee or something like that. And there's so many resources out there. If you're interested and you have any mechanical dexterity, it's there for you. So that's Craig's initial tip. Old metal is great in the apocalypse.
Think about the solar storms and EMPs. Some of these older vehicles
they don't
would
care.
be able to withstand. Since we had the the solar storm when we were up at Tim's place, it was interesting. Ransom and I are coming in, and Brian over there at Into Thin Air, we're coming in to talk about solar cycles and control of weather and decreasing magnetic fields. And wouldn't you know, we had red auroras that same night just before we talked in the morning. Pretty interesting timing. Oh, public service announcement right now for everybody. Bruce Pack's Meat is recalling 11 million pounds of meat due to listeria risk. So if you're eating Bruce Pack's PAC, Bruce Pack meat recall, this generally comes out of Walmart, and they're recalling 11 million pounds of meat, possible listeria. And I did not know. They are also in a bevy of ready-to-eat products sold across the U.S., including Walmart, Target, and Trader Joe's. So,
oh wow,
yeah, and just think about that. I was just reading an article today in Spain where they wanted to rip down about 100 acres of olive trees to put in a solar farm, and the farmers didn't want to sell, so the government came in eminent domain and stole their land and are chainsawing generational olive groves. So, everywhere we look, it's either be afraid of meat or they're just actually taking out the food supply. So, yeah, I don't know where it goes from here, but let me, Ransom, let me hit on a couple of the comments here in Rumble tonight, and we're going to try to go through a few of the live streams, read some of your comments. Maybe we'll answer them. Ransom, maybe you could tell me a little more about this, because you sent me that link, but I didn't have a chance to leave it or read it. Damn, I can't even talk tonight. DOD Directive 5240 point. Now, again, what is this all about? We're on YouTube tonight, so maybe we need to tread carefully with that one. Somebody also says authorize use of U.S. military force on civilians, U.S. soil. Here's another goodie. More talks about the internet going out over the next few days due to solar flares. And as I was talking, as these gas giants are squaring off, we should see higher and higher level and intensity on the flares that are coming off. There were like 3 regions that were X-flare possible, and I'll have to go check those. But Ransom, what was that thing you were talking about? You sent me that. Is that the same article where they're talking about using lethal force here on a home soil? Is that what I'm reading correctly?
Yes. Well, it's an updated DOD Directive 5240.01. And what's really funny is I'll show you this. On screen, I'm showing that exact PDF through the, I think that's Foxfire browser, in which it only shows the August 27th, 2007 paper that was updated November 9th, 2020. Now, weirdly, if you put it into a like Chrome or something, you get the updated version, and I'm gonna screenshot that so everybody can see it. And this is the one where it gets down here where it talks about basically, yes, they're giving the Department of Defense authorization to use lethal force in combination with autonomous programs in certain circumstances. And all over the internet, people are going, oh, they've always been able to do that. Yeah, well, they might have, set it up where they could do that, but it's never been illegal or, one of these things that they put out where they were just going to directly violate posse comitatus like this. And when you get in here, yes, it does talk about how there are now given new powers to make basically decisions in the field when helping local law enforcement or local government with certain things. And if you remember a few years ago, but let me search through that and I will find the exact spot. But a few years ago, they used a Predator drone to help a local sheriff's department, find out intel and fly over and find out where a suspect they were trying to get was. And a lot of people were like, oh, well, that's not a big deal that the, government got involved. But now we're talking about something a little different. We're talking about being able to use assets and basically do what Barack Obama set precedent for, which is be able to assassinate American citizens without trial. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, there was a guy called Anwar al-Awlaki, the CIA lackey, who ironically lived right over here near me before he enjoyed, dinners and luncheons and meetings at the Pentagon. This is all on record and easy to find on the internet. But then he supposedly turned into an extremist and moved overseas, in which we Predator drone striked him. And then later, Predator drone striked his 16-year-old son, both who were American citizens. Now, I'm not trying to say that I agree with the people, the target or their beliefs or any of that, but the precedent was set to declare an American citizen as a enemy combatant, or, what are they trying to push the new terminology now? Insurrectionist, because now they're calling Americans insurrectionist or, stuff like that. So they constantly push these terms until they get into a scenario where they will be able to use them. So I'm going to find the exact spot where it talks about, I think it's section 3.1, if I remember right. and I will get back with you, and I'll throw that back on the screens because I want to make sure that we're, showing the exact right thing so that nobody could say we're trying to misinform or anything.
Yeah, it's true. And one here also when we're talking about food, cold devastates UK growing season, second worst harvest ever. And this goes back to only 1983, but England and the UK is a very old place, thousands of years of history. But I would say, even last night here, went down to 34 degrees, 32 last night, 34 tonight. Our gardens are wiped out. We didn't really put the row cloth on because it just didn't dawn on us this early, like in the middle of October, to put on hard freeze row cloth. And I was going somewhere with that, with the food, because hungry people do strange and angry and are uncontrollable. Now you start to mix in all these things that are going to be happening after November. Food's going to get way more expensive just based on the crop losses across the planet. I mean, have you thought so far the food had risen in price? I don't know. Maybe they'll be chasing down Craig in his 76 Jeep Cherokee, hunting you down, man. Is this going to be like Red Dawn and we see Craig driving up into the hills, taking a bunch of people with him? I don't know, but we're coming to this super scenario here where it's politically unstable, economically unstable. Food's going to get more scarce, pretty much out of the range for a lot of people to even afford it unless they're getting government assistance. And when I say that, I mean, they're going to have to pay people not to riot in the street. That's how high the food prices are going right now. So I don't know what you're seeing on your end there, Craig, because I know you follow a little bit of trading in the markets, and I've been looking at some of the futures prices also for corn, soy, wheat, sorghum, cocoa's going crazy. I mean, just a huge amount of things are going up in price. Soybeans seems to be the only thing that really grew well this year. But otherwise, what are you seeing on your side over there? Because really, maybe what I'm asking is, how does this fit into what Ransom was just talking about, the DoD thing, and then all the instability that is coming toward us in many ways, shapes, and forms here? Got gold, stack it up, got silver, got food, but a lot of people don't.
It's tough. I mean, right now is a great time to, make money any way you can. And especially, like for me, I'm very lucky in that at the moment I have a day job, but I do trade, and I'm actually up, 5 a.m. Pacific time. I guess you say 5 a.m. right now Mountain time. So, and I trade for about 2 hours in the morning, and then some during the day if I get a chance. That's just futures, and I trade NASDAQ futures. Also oil, just crude, light crude. It's always good to watch light crude because when the market opens, if there's any instability in the world, which there often is, you can really cash in. So futures, it's very. I always tell people, I say, don't hate me. These are strictly speculative assets. These are just ways that you make money if you're a trader. In the morning, about 6:30 a.m. my time, Mountain time, it's great volatility. It's when the New York opens, and so you're usually going to get about an hour or 2 hours of really, really great volatility, trading, and so you can make some money. You can make some cash if you know what you're doing, and might be a long road to learn that, but also, if one likes to buy silver and gold, what you're doing is you're just taking fiat currency, which, whether it really has wealth or not, whether it really has value or not, that's a huge discussion. But all the same, you can take your fiat currency, your dollars, and you can turn them into silver or gold. Silver's easy. You can buy silver coins at the coin store. You can buy gold coins, and you can buy fractions of a gold coin. You can buy gold shot. It all depends on what you want to do. But something I find right now that's very encouraging is if you can make any extra money, if you do have a surplus at all, I can't give anybody financial advice, but I would say, sure, if you want to keep some in the bank, people are making like 5-6% again in savings accounts and such. I mean, these things are happening, but really right now, if anybody is, if you're listening to this, you're probably a bit with it, and you know that those bank accounts or, whatever they are, they can disappear in a second. And so if you want to play that game and make some interest, or, use an account for money that comes in and out where you pay your bills and things like that, that's fine. But I would have to just recommend, without giving financial advice, that keep some money in gold and silver, really, because silver's not very expensive. You can buy a few coins a week or a coin a week. Just keep some silver and gold. Don't buy anything, like don't buy the futures unless you're a trader and things like that. Buy the real gold coins, real silver coins. Silver coins are great. What, like $30 a coin right now or something like that? So even if it goes up or it goes down, you're turning fiat currency, fiat money, dollars into wealth, and generational wealth, really, and you can just stack it. And if you make some money, you make some money. If you don't, you don't. You can always go to the coin store and turn it around. It can be money again if you really need it, whether you made or lost some money. It is our only sure bet right now. And, when they run around confiscating it, well, I can't really speak to that. That's kind of your own life decisions and how things work and where you live, But trading wise, futures are, if one is a trader for reals, they're great stuff. There's resources where you can learn how to do some futures trading. Also crypto. Crypto is a great speculative asset, and I've been watching Bitcoin on the daily charts right now. Looking at Bitcoin, it is I would share a screen. I'm not exactly sure how to do it right now with you guys, so I won't bother. But Bitcoin right now on the daily chart, it's been sideways ever since about March this year. But it's above some important levels, and as a speculative asset, it's not bad to put a little bit in Bitcoin. Could the government? I always warn people about crypto, especially Bitcoin. The government could call it terrorism tomorrow, and it has no value. It's going to dump so much, you're going to lose money. But as a speculative asset, right now, with the uncertainty of the world, I kind of prefer taking some of my fiat currency, put it in gold and silver. I actively do trade to make more money, but that money that I'm making, that surplus, is going into gold and silver right now. At least some of it is, and some of it's paying bills. But also, speculative assets, I do like Bitcoin. I do like XRP, like I always say, people can, give me crap about XRP. I know what it is. It's nothing beautiful. I get it. But as a speculative asset, I think it's a pretty good one. So I keep a little bit of kind of weekly, more like about maybe every 2 weeks, a little bit goes into Shiba Inu, SHIB, SHIB, and a little bit goes into XRP, and then the most of it goes into Bitcoin. And I don't know. There is, of course, always it's a speculative asset, so it could make you some money, depending on how you want to play it. It also could be called terrorism. So really, the world's nuts right now. And if you can make extra money, make it. I would suggest highly, if you got some extra dough, it's not safe in the bank right now, and put it in gold and silver coins, and keeping it in a safe and protecting it with high velocity lead is a good idea. And so that's something I've mentioned. But here's one for you guys. Along with trading, I'm always looking at hooks. Things that I can. Ways that I can measure reality. I can look at things and sort of see what's going on. And as far as the hyperinflation, most people would say that the world has changed since January, March 2019, and it's things cost a lot more than they used to. All this crap about it's up 0.03%, or down 0.03%. All these ridiculous numbers. We know it's like 20 to 40% for most things that you buy, if not 100% for many. So we know, anybody who lives in this world and shops and buys things knows that, damn, it is more expensive to live. And with that said, here's one. I wonder if you guys see this. So I live in Scottsdale, which is pretty much like the pretty part of Phoenix. And one thing that you would never see here ever in 2019, January 2019, you never would have seen this, but you see it now, is dented up old cars. Like, this is a kind of a rather wealthy area. Not that everybody here is wealthy, but it's a very wealthy area. So like your average car was, like $80,000, $120,000, Land Rovers, like just the most expensive, like, oftentimes in front of our house, no, I'm not kidding, there's like Lamborghinis and Ferraris parked and such, like we're not wealthy. We just happen to have bought a house that nobody cared about a long time ago. And we live here, but it's a very wealthy area. And something that you're seeing now is people are driving around Toyota Corollas. Their Range Rovers have a dent in the back end, and people have scraped down the side of somebody's car in an intersection, and we're actually seeing rather expensive cars, and I mean a lot of them, that are dented up and they're not fixed. And also we're seeing a lot of cars you never would have seen before. Now around the country you might see there's a lot of Toyota Corollas, old Toyota pickup trucks, Volkswagen Bugs. You're seeing vehicles here that are somebody bought. Somebody went, crap, a Passat. So people are buying, they're selling their expensive stuff, and they're buying cheaper cars like Toyota Corollas and old ones and stuff like that. So a place where you used to see only pristine, like lots of Ferraris, lots of Land Rovers, and those like G-Wagons, like all this, it's just a gaudy place. But now they get dented up and they don't fix them. They just keep driving them. And more, we've seen the average, car, value go down 2/3 since 2019. Think you never would have seen a 95 Toyota Corolla here before, and now they're getting very common. So I would say that that's just what I wanted to ask you guys about. Like, are there hooks that you're watching, like in the economy, to see how it's doing? Because like for here, that even though it sounds kind of like a vain, superficial thing, it's still like a measurement. And I would say that using that as a measurement, I think it's a lot of people in this damn wealthy part of the country right here in Scottsdale and sort of Phoenix too, that are not paying insurance on their cars, because they'd had that thing fixed. Or if they were, they don't have comprehensive. They either don't have it or they only have liability. And to see a 90s Toyota Corolla here with a dent that may or may not be insured, that is a crazy change in the economy. And so anyway, guys, I thought I'd just throw it out there. If you guys have hooks that you're looking at that you notice that tell you about the economy and how it's doing, if you don't have any, keep your eye out, because you might find very mundane things that tell you a lot about what's going on. So I'll throw that back out.
Yeah, Ransom, hit up on that, because I'm curious what you're seeing out in your area too.
Well, I live next to El Paso, so I constantly see the triggers. But as far as automotive, I remember when we had the pandemic, all of the car lots in New Mexico suddenly went empty, and they were blaming a chip shortage at that time. But after that, it basically stayed empty, which means to me that people were not buying new cars for a long time. And then when they finally started getting some stock of new vehicles in there, they're not moving. I mean, I see the same ones, basically. So some people are, and it might have something to do with, the whole fad of going to these completely overcomplicated, and I'm going to circle back to the first time he was on. He was talking about his car spying on him. And we kind of brought this up on the Tim Pool show, talking about weather, how they had satellites around the globe that beamed down infrared beams, and it's basically like a giant net that keeps track of the three-dimensional ongoings and goings on the surface, so we can look at a country and tell that they've moved stuff around, things like that. And I brought up the fact that all of the devices are doing that, and a lot of people I saw in the comments were talking about, well, where are they keeping all this data? They're not understanding that data is increasingly easy to keep and only use when necessary. So you allow AI and algorithms to kind of watch things, and it flags maybe another algorithm or a human being to look at it. So they have all kinds of technologies now that are watching you, but there's not necessarily like a human in some room that's watching you, but he's capable of it. It's a capability. So they have all these programs that want to make sure that you stay watching your television and stuff. Are you still watching? I'm sure you've seen that on Netflix, Hulu, all of these other things. It's because the television knows that you haven't been interacting with the controls and you're not looking at it. So all of these things are keeping track of you, including the cars. And he brought up having an older model of car. So that might be a reason that some of these, more affluent people are starting to catch on the trends of things changing, or, maybe they got tired of driving around their electric car that isn't really reliable or whatever. But to get back to the car thing, he's absolutely right in the fact that you can have a whole range of model of cars. Like, say, you pick a early models 90s Honda Accord or something like that. You can take the CPU out of an Accord and you can use it in a Civic or some other things. I know because I used to build cars and buy them at auction. So sometimes we would mismatch parts because that the part is actually the same thing. And a lot of the brands are actually the same thing. So you have Toyota Lexus, you have Honda Acura. I forgot what the Nissan one is, maybe Infinity or something like that. But in other words, that you could take parts that go to your car, and even if you can't get your car going, you can find a car that's doesn't work and put your good parts in it and be ready to go in a matter of minutes, literally, if you know how to do that. It's just unplugging and plugging back in wiring harnesses, basically. And he was talking about the ODM plug-in, which is we're going to really circle about. So that is a thing that you could plug in, and you can tune your car. You can find out what's wrong with it. It's the same thing the guys at AutoZone and O'Reilly's are using to figure out what's wrong with your car. They do that at the dealership. It's a computer that interacts with the computer program on your car and tells it all the errors so they know what to look for as far as maintenance and repair. That same thing can be used to fix cars that aren't working right. You can buy them you could buy them from AutoZone, I'm sure, but they now have this same concept, but for the human brain. So here's a big loop around. All of this stuff is now working in conjunction and with each other. The Internet of Things is now an invisible force on the planet, where you have all of these algorithms, companies, God knows, government programs, all of these things like in this big octopus squished up and tied into a knot, and people are stealing data constantly. So every time you take your phone to a shopping center, a mall, a rest stop, a national monument, any of that stuff, they have pinged your phone and they know that you traveled there. And this is how a profiler that would be a human would figure out, what most likely you're going to do next or the behaviors of you. But now they have this exponentially blown out where algorithms and AI are doing that. And for more than a decade, human beings have been volunteering all of the missing information. So like they went on Facebook, they showed Facebook all the movies and all the shows they liked. They showed Facebook all of the agreements, ideas, and other things that they like. They showed them their patterns by checking in or taking pictures and showing their food. So they volunteered all of this metadata into this massive system. Now, they might not have used that data at that time, but that data still exists in these mega data centers. And they can pull it back up and reuse it or resell it at a later time for anything. So like when you go shopping, they know your shopping habits. They know that you're going to stop at the store and get your addiction. They know about what time you're going to go to bed. They know what shows you're going to watch. And people don't realize that it's not necessarily a group of humans in a smoky room that's taking advantage of this. No, those people have programmed algorithms that now do it for them. And then you have triggers that tell them. So weirdly enough, if you're too invisible, you will stand out in the algorithm. In other words, so if you don't participate in society a little bit, you're going to get profiled as some kind of outlier and be given to this this surveillance apparatus. And then they start paying attention to you. So if you're, like say you go online and you buy a bunch of survival goods and a bunch of emergency foods, depending on what company you did it for, another company knows that, and then they resell that. And then eventually a government agency gets a hold of that information for free. And it's this entire invisible web that's kind of being controlled to make sure that they keep track of every last one of you. Now, when you put that in perspective of this DOD thing, which we were talking about a minute ago, it's now giving this, large, dark, overblown, trillions and trillions of dollars missing, deep state military industrial complex, all of that data. They have access to all of it. And now they're giving that same entity a little more power. And this is how they do it incrementally over time. And what was going on with this DOD is they renewed it or edited it. And now it has language like this: assisting and responding with assets with potential for lethality or any situation of force that is likely to result in lethal force, including death and serious bodily injury. It also includes the support to civilian law enforcement officials in situations where a confrontation between civilian law enforcement and civilian individuals or groups is reasonably anticipated. Maybe like if they would have had this pre-January 6th, they might have decided that they could use lethal force against a crowd that they thought was potentially lethal. And so they have this now. They've changed this. So this is potentiality as further restricted based on specific requested support. And then there's provisions to use DoD unmanned systems in the United States, except as delegated by the Secretary of Defense pursuant to October 31st, blah, blah, blah. So basically what they're now saying is, like local law enforcement can go get a warrant from a judge to get in your house, basically the local law enforcement can get permission from the Department of Defense that's assisting them by telling them that there's a potentiality for lethality, either from civilian law enforcement or for the groups. In other words, it's a giant glaring violation of posse comitatus, and they kind of just slipped it in there. It's nowhere in the news. Now let's put that in the perspective of the reality that we live in. And every indication is, and I feel like Nostradamus again, they're writing articles that's asking, will the Middle East war, keep going and blend into the Eastern Ukraine bloc, and this be the trigger for World War? And we've already talked about that these war zones are so close to each other that they both border Turkey, basically, and it wouldn't be long before those two wars start intersecting. And then I sent you this thing. So allegedly in China, they're recalling all of their veterans to come in preparation for conscription. And, and then we have politicians over here telling Ukraine to just start taking them younger. You don't have enough people, get them younger. So if our politicians are willing to talk about citizens of other countries in that way, what do you think that they would do when it came to them using these ideas against the public? And I don't know, an election that gets out of hand, a natural disaster that gets out of hand, a potentiality for global conflict. They would be enacting all of these things and many, many other things that they've instituted since 2001, from the Patriot Act to the NDAA that they revise every year and give themselves additional powers that no one voted to give them to. They don't have permission under the Constitution. They just give it to themselves. So we're in a situation where there is a lot of potential roads for some really disturbing changes in our reality. And with all of that, they throw out distractions like, the NASA filmmaker that's claiming that him and other people within NASA and maybe even in Japan, he's even worried about people scooping him with the information, but he's claiming that there is indeed proof of an extraterrestrial intelligent species communicating in the galaxy, is what I gathered. So wouldn't that be nice to just throw that on top at the peak of the world's problems? We got World War, we got, the climate change hoax or the climate scam that's going on, and just show up with some, I don't know, mRNA created, gene edited being from a lab somewhere with an anti-gravitic device that they seem to be leaking to the public as, yes, that's our technology that we're using there. And then just say, hey, you poor humans, we'll just take over. We'll let the AI algorithm run everything because you guys are too dangerous. Look, you've burned up your planet, you've polluted it, and you're constantly going to war. Why not just hand over control to this, non-biased AI system? So it doesn't matter if it's a little green man or a little gray man with big eyes or an algorithm you can't even see. And speaking of stock, the entire stock market is now ran by, I don't know what, millions of different AIs and algorithms manipulating the system, buying, selling, creating fake trends, all kinds of stuff. So we're in a real pickle as far as, even being able to see the bars that lock us in this prison planet.
I would say H. Johnson 8225 throws a comment. Ration cards, coupons have already been printed. No, they haven't, because they're going to be digital. And you're going to have to acquire that with a smart device, and you're going to have to do facial recognition, and it'll be a digital ID for you to access the food. And that's one of the problems is moving to the digital system. And Craig, we're coming on break here in a minute, but I'm going to throw this idea out, and then, I'm just curious, because this artificial intelligence, it seems like it has been built by the fallen angels, the ones that were kicked out of heaven, and they have no way to reconnect with the Creator as they were kicked out of the kingdom. Now, the way I'm surveying it here is they want to interface with this transhumanist to integrate circuits back into the human brain. But our brain is the connection to the Creator itself. We have the ability to connect to the Creator. It's as if the fallen angels have created AI as the sole purpose to eventually intersect and connect with our brains as a way for the fallen ones to try to reconnect back up to source by using AI as this conduit through our physical manifestation of conscious thought. I don't know, man. It seems that something's not right with all this AI. It seems already to the point where we are, and it's not really barely developed. It's not as conscious as it could be. It's not sentient yet. But the way you're looking at it is, it was built by something, deployed by something for a purpose. And that purpose for me is now the fallen ones are trying to reconnect back into heaven. So I'll leave it there. But that digital ration card, you're not going to eat if you don't have the means. And if you are not ready to, it is going to be fully digital. There will be no paper. So I'm going to leave it there and take us out into the break here, Craig.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah. When you mention the archons, I mean that gets back to the Gnostic story of, I believe it's a Gnostic story of the Sophia myth. Like where our little universe here, the Milky Way, was made by a great big plasma being, called, Sophia. You could give it a name if you want. And when it, and these big, plasma angels, you could say, they, create universes, they create Milky Ways and such as experiments to see how consciousness evolves. And so and they're always trying to get it better. And so when our universe, Milky Way, was created, Sophia, that created it, the great big plasma being, ended up inadvertently creating actually archons. These little, they kind of look like little inorganic beings that kind of look like bugs, and they came out of that creation as an error, in Sophia's creation. So if one looks up, look up Gnostic Sophia myth, the Sophia creation story. And it's really fascinating if one likes, mythology. There are people that really do think this is exactly how it happened. And I'd say, well, whatever. But the idea is that the archons are inorganic beings that have not necessarily life of their own. They're kind of a machine. Like imagine a roach, and it has no insides, and it has to kind of charge its light from living beings, and then actually that gives it energy to exist. So it's like a ghoulish energy. And Frank Jacob did a great 3-part series on archons and such recently, and it's really something to see. People can go frankjacob.com. It's there, or Cyber. I'll also put a link to it later. There's ways you can find it. But people are becoming aware of it, and that's the big thing. whether one believes in the Sophia creation story or not, there's a lot of let's call it science coming out of angels and demons. There's people writing about this now, and it's kind of coming into our consciousness that these are actually huge, plasma beings. The angels are these plasma beings, and the demons are these like plasma demons, and like they create things like Milky Ways. And so we were created, and inadvertently in that creation were the archons created, and they have an incredibly negative effect on our world. So however you approach it, what you believe or don't believe, it actually really fits. It's a good working model.
It's unknown if early man knew they would be the progenitors of great civilizations, or if they knew when their empires would fall and disappear into history. Fortunately for us as modern man, we can recognize that we are at the precipice, a point in history where we can see the cycle changing. Where we go from here is up to us.
How do you feed your families when the shelves are empty, the stores are shut, and there's no food available? What is the fastest, easiest, and most productive foods to grow? What is the quickest way to get somebody who has no skills at all up and running and producing very quickly? If you understand that we're at a point in history where it is no longer optional to be growing your own food, if you're like really freaked out and concerned because you've never grown food before and you don't have any skills, you don't know how to do that, but you know how important it is, then I want to let you know, however you stumbled here, you're in the right place. My name is Marjorie Wildcraft. I'm the founder of the Grow Network, and I have been the female leader in the survival and preparedness space for the last 20 years.
How to grow lots of food, even if you have no experience, are older and out of shape. This is for people who want the fastest and easiest ways to produce healthy and delicious meat, eggs, and vegetables. Because you know that growing your own food is like printing your own money. During this webinar, you will get status of global food shortages, how long the crisis will last, how much space you need to grow food, easiest, highest calorie foods you can produce, a complete plan for producing all the food you need, how to get started today, regardless of season. Marjorie will show you the fastest, easiest, and simplest ways to produce calories and nutrition, especially in a crisis and/or grid-down situation. The assumption is that you have no experience and you need to start producing food immediately. The most popular part of the webinar is the Q&A session at the end. So please come prepared with your questions.
Pro Clear Cleanse is the most powerful spray cleaner on the market today. No elbow grease necessary. Pro Clear Cleanse cuts through grease and grime like a chef's knife. Finally, the one cleaner that can do it all. Powerful surfactant cleaning technology cleans ovens, glass, porcelain, even polished wood. Environmentally friendly, less packaging and waste with no harsh smells, pet safe, child safe. 5 tablets equals 1 bottle of traditional cleaner. It's 5 months of cleaning for a fraction of the cost. Behold the grease-erasing power of Odor Crush. Simply drop a tablet into your bottle of warm water and shake it so it is evenly diluted. Spray the surface you want cleaned. Let set longer for tougher grease. Take a paper towel or a reusable cloth and wipe. Done and done.
Howdy, partner. You know people are having dinner and the smart ones are eating beef. Let me tell you a brief history, or more accurately, a beef history of dinner. Domestication of cattle happened around 8000 BC, but that's not when beef became what's for dinner. We've been eating beef since times before history. The earliest cave paintings have beef eloquently depicted on the walls. Those cave drawings of the hunt were for the aurochs, a primitive bovine. That's right, beef. Like I said, people are having dinner now, and the smart ones, well, they're eating beef. Americans want great food today, but we also want to have great food to eat if things go south in a hurry. Unlike most companies that take the cheapest, worst parts of the cow, then turn them into beef crumbles, whatever that is. They freeze dry them in hopes that their customers will never actually try to eat it. Our premium beef cubes are sous vide, freeze-dried, and ready to be eaten right now, or in a decade from now. We want you to eat our beef now, so you can buy more. Prep with steaks, not with beef crumbles. This is a high-quality product. It's all American beef and 100% natural. None of that craziness of lab-grown meat and mRNA jabs. Our beef has a shelf life of 10+ years. This is high-quality cooked and freeze-dried beef for long-term storage or not. Eat well today and eat well tomorrow. Click the link in the description to get your Prepper beef with Prepper All Naturals, so you will always know what's for dinner.
Don't forget to sign up for the show notes to get information we sometimes can't relay on social media outlets. Sign up at oilseedcrops.org/MIAC radio show.
Take it, further. Oh, Revolution Radio, thanks for letting us broadcast tonight. And again, free speech is becoming something that is disappearing. And you can find different chapters of history, whether it's the dinosaurs or whether it's the dodo. And now we're coming to free speech. That'll be the next thing. And looking through the Bolshevik Revolution and just these different chapters of history where you're not allowed to talk about a single thing. It's just doesn't matter which country. It seems to be a cycle in itself. It's more like the free speech, the expression cycle. Also comes and goes, ebbs and flows. But free speech is something that we do need to take to the very, this is, if you can't express as a human from one person to another without having somebody in the middle telling you what you can or cannot say as an expression, we've actually lost our planet at that point. So Revolution Radio, if you consider free speech, throw a donation at the top there in the nav bar. You can find many different ways to donate, including crypto. And, eventually we're moving over to Hashgraph. This blockchain thing's just that middle step to Hashgraph. But that's where it really gets interesting because the Internet of Things, it seems like it'll be instantaneous for the entire planet when we do move to Hashgraph. And they were talking around 2030 for that movement to the final step. So what you know is blockchain right now, this is just the intermediary step. They're going to get everybody into the digitized world. Banking, bank bail-ins, I saw that comment. Thanks for putting that on there. Bank bail-ins are a real deal. After the Dodd-Frank Act and all these things passed in the 2008 financial crisis, the bank owns all of your money that's in there. They own the safe deposit box. Anything in your safe deposit box, the bank owns it. Anything in your savings account, which scares me because I have some money in there. I probably have too much in there. They own that too. I wish I could run a balance of $1 and still, but I got bills coming in. I got software costs and, I got to pay for my mortgage and, insurance and all these things that just nickel and dime you to death in America. I'm telling you, it is ridiculously expensive to live in the United States. Having lived overseas and been to quite a few places, especially living over in Taiwan, it's a fraction of living here, in America. And you don't get nickeled and dimed where all your wages are gone and suddenly at the end of the month where you're running like a barely thin level. And this whole working, even though you make good money and then you just work into the end of the month and you're like, where'd it all go? Oh, bills, everything's 5 times more expensive. You got this, that, and the other, the insurances. It's just a milking your wealth machine here. I don't know how anybody even passes away to leave money to their kids because you got to spend it just to stay alive in this fictitious state. And I'm wondering what's going to go on here as we move forward. Oh, but I did want to talk about the snows. Get off on my tangent here. To start our second hour, I wanted to talk about absurd amounts of snowfall. And this is one thing, and I'll let Ransom talk himself, But we were talking about more moisture in the atmosphere with Tim Pool about the Hunga Tonga eruption. And they were kind of like, wow, there's that much extra water vapor in the atmosphere? And I'm like, yeah. And Ransom was like, yeah. So early snowfall, Jay Peak Ski Resort, Vermont, feet of snow. Not supposed to do that until another month and a half from now. But don't ask. The calendar doesn't matter in today's world. Snowfalls in Andalusia, Spain. Record snowfall there. Storm Leslie drops temperatures. Smash in the snowfalls. And at lower altitudes, massive flooding across Europe right now. And last night, again, it comes down. It was freezing. It'll be 34 degrees tonight. So as we look at these different types of earth changes that are now starting to manifest, it's so in your face everywhere. I mean, these massive flash floods across Oman, again, one of the driest areas, inside the empty quarter, no less, which is literally one of the driest places on the planet that borders Saudi Arabia. It is sand dunes, and they call it the empty quarter for a reason. Nothing can survive there, barely. Not plants, nothing. It's moving sand dunes because nothing grows. It is dry as dry can be. If you're looking at the Arabian Peninsula as a whole, the driest area is the empty quarter. But they got flash floods going through there right now. So, something has definitely switched and changed it up. So, Ransom, I'll leave it up to you here for the to throw it out. But I mean, the more and more of these things we're seeing, at what point does humanity come to some sort of awareness here that, the cycle is now affecting us? And again, does this come back to the DoD thing? Are we at this precipice of global awareness rising that we're just not going to have enough food to feed everybody? And the introduction of these digital rationing cards is going to be, I think, the key rollover point. And now all armies on the world are bringing up their reservists from China to North Korea to Russia. The armored columns in Russia, I mean, they're sending everything to the front right now. I mean, everything. Where they had some drone footage of the soldiers walking. It was like 100,000 troops walking. And then these pictures of the trains today, just like literally endless trains full of like troop carriers and this sort of thing. Like, wow, they're definitely all sent into so everywhere we look. And then it's the Middle East, and then it's this, and then so I'm wondering, is it the natural cycle that people are catching on to? So the politics needs to obscure all of this, what would be panic from humanity, because they understand the food supply is disappearing and they're not going to have enough for everybody here? Or is it really geopolitics and just the maybe I'm grasping for a straw about the food shortages, along with all this moisture in the air everywhere, when everybody's becoming aware right now something ain't right? Everybody feels it, and they're starting to see it and believe it and really talk about it. So I don't know, man. I guess it's an open-ended question. You can take it any way you like.
Well, it's ironic because, not to toot my own horn, but I talked about how this upcoming conflict, and even before the conflict was really going, that this would be when they start using AI and killer bots. Now, we've seen that. We've seen it from the cartel on the border, using it for surveillance, for assassination tools, flying bombs, things like that. We also see it overseas in Ukraine, and we see multi-million-dollar equipment being taken down by low amounts of low-tech. And I'm calling it low-tech because it's been around now for 10 to 15 years, available to the citizenry. And what I'm talking about is the programming and the tech that it takes to have drones flying around with computer-assisted AI to help it do things that, like, if it loses signal, it continues to go, or things like that. I have a drone myself. It's amazing, some of the stuff that it can do. But let's put it in perspective. World War I brought out the last of the cavalry and people on horseback and things like that, and most of them were killed. And then they came out with machinery. And then by World War II, we blew up all of that old stuff, including the United States, that just so happened to line up all our old boats in a row, so to speak, for them to get taken out, which gave us and the military-industrial complex the excuse to not only tax but pay for a whole new war machine, which I'm sure was already in the works. The same thing happened in Europe. The other side of things was also vastly increasing the technological capabilities of war. And I mean that from all of the Axis powers, well, not all of them, I guess, but most of it. Things were happening. You had Germany skyrocketing in rocket technology and God knows how many other things. The United States ramping up production, building new things. You had Japan also doing the same thing. Helicopters, missiles, rockets, jets, all of it popped up out of nowhere in World War II. Now, we have a problem now. We've built, decades worth of Cold War era stuff that is now literally obsolete on the war field, in the theater of war. So you can have a drone take out a multi-million-dollar tank, a multi-million-dollar helicopter. I'm not sure how they fare against jets, but what if, you pop up 200, 1,000 of these small little drones that have basically like what looks like a revolver on it. So it's a little system that they came up with that will drop one little projectile at a time, or they use the actual drone for a projectile. These things can go extremely fast depending on how much charge you put on it. So we're getting into that next era, and we're about to blow up all of the old stuff. It's all about to go bye-bye. And I'm sure you saw the recent headlines of drones buzzing the Pentagon. And I predicted that eventually, even here in the United States, there will be a drone assassination involved with a drone exploding or otherwise somehow killing someone via the drone. And then you see at the same time, the military and government also move the goalpost on what they can do, introducing the idea of allowing basically, metered autonomous assets for local law enforcement to use in case of certain scenarios. You see all around the world the government's conscripting people. So they're getting rid of, this is like one of the biggest, aside from World War II and the installation of communism in different countries, the mass genocide by democide, if that makes sense. So it's a genocide of all of these paternal haptypes of military age fighting men around the world. And some of them are being moved out of areas, as we talk about ad nauseum. They're being moved around, and they're going to be used also for assets. Those assets will be reduced greatly in number, along with all of the old-style Cold War era kinetic warfare, which will be replaced by new systems. So now the newer tanks will have to roll out with some kind of anti-drone defense system that can track multiple targets. The problem is just like the Russian nuclear missiles that can split into 16 or more different warheads, you have drone systems now that can essentially do the same thing. So it's going to be a back and forth and a super exponential increase in technology over the next decade. Now, in the backdrop of this, you have the shutdown of the human existence via new rules, regulations, treaties, guidelines, etc., and the reduction of freedom in all of the Western countries. One of those main freedoms is the right to have food, grow food, and eat food. And, that's going to be replaced by none other than crops with AI tools. And by the way, David, I don't know how much you got to get out in that area we went to, but I think you would agree that it would be a traditional rural type area and small town. Now, I realize there's probably a lot of traffic due to tourism and other things in that area. However, every store I went to, including the airports on the way home, I saw a robot at each and every one of them. Now, I don't know why they were empty. Like at the grocery store, there was 2 robots rolling around with signs on it for a sale of some product, and all of the products were gone off of the robot, but the robot was still driving around aimlessly in the store. I saw him at the airport. I saw him at a little shopping center. So they're just everywhere now. So they're incrementalizing the idea of not only total control from the top down by an algorithm, but they're introducing the next layers of technology. And you've already been kind of institutionalized to interact with the screen at this point. We've had the devolution of human beings and the dumbing down of the Western world. And, I use the technology too. I'm not trying to be a hypocrite, but whenever you can't remember anything or you need to look it up all the time and you have to Google it, that thing now has the power over your intellect, memory, know-how, and other things. And now human beings are literally evolving into, maybe we're the grays, because now we're evolving into a lethargic being with a bad diet, which eventually, if you think about it in evolutionary terms, would tend to get a smaller body with reduced muscle mass, less testosterone, a bigger head, maybe some big bulbous eyes to look at the screen in the dark 24 hours or at their phone. And in the backdrop of that, there's just an increase in all of these fatal diseases, including cancer. Now, you don't see no race for the cause of cancer. You only see the race for the cure. They're not putting pink ribbons on for the cause of anything. They want a cure, because the cure is a product just like anything else and can be metered. And that's the nightmare scenario of total digital tracking of every last human being and animal on the planet. And that's the system they're setting up. And we know that because they're telling us that. So in order to have that, we have to have this great reset. It has to have growing pains. They have to unplug the system because that's the only way to completely start it up from a new system up. And what we're talking about is a weird technologic feudalism in where all of the people that are left will be a slave to that machine.
Damn, Craig, I don't know how you follow something like that. I mean, where does it go? I mean, all the predictive programming here, solar eruption can take out the internet for weeks or months. Like, they're already telling us that we're a solar maximum. We're coming into a time where internet may go down. And if you can't remember anything, you don't have any communications. I mean, everything out here in East Tennessee and North Carolina, West, was all ham radio. I mean, sheesh, what's coming next? I mean, obviously planning for something here, trying to pre-place the idea of solar eruption as in a CME, coronal mass ejection, going to take out the internet. Then what? Where does that leave us?
Well, old school always eventually finds a way to defeat new school. So, like I did see donkey trains out there, like donkey caravans that were, getting aid to people, and where FEMA wouldn't go down roads that weren't perfect, people there did. So along with what Ransom was saying, when it comes to the burning up all the old Cold War era stuff, people, and World War II era stuff, as far as military equipment, people oftentimes forget, because they just don't think about it much, that the Patriot missile system that's Cold War junk. It's not worth much. Yeah, it'll shoot down a few things, but not as much as people think. And the Iron Dome, it's only a little bit newer. So we are sort of fighting in many ways with old stuff. And who's actually been working on new school stuff? That's kind of the BRICS. You've got Iran, you've got Russia. The Lancet drones are phenomenal. They have AI built into them now, where they've got kind of like a couple of motherships that fly around and then guide swarms of smaller Lancets, and they actually will, via AI, they will identify threats and just nuke them, just bomb them with, not nuke them literally, but nuke them with Lancets. So the Russians just sit back and they lure the Ukrainian troops out into the open, make them advance, and then the Lancet swarm just kills them all. So, Iran's been doing some pretty good technology, and Russia's got, I think it's the S-400 It can definitely take out aircraft. And so right now Iran is, full of those around all of their, critical infrastructure, just waiting for, Israeli jets to shoot down. So it's an interesting time, and we have a lot of old junk. But the thing is the countries, when I look at the situation, like Russia, they make their own munitions. We don't make crap. Like we really don't make howitzer rounds here, because we'll make F-35s because they make so much money. There's so much kickbacks. Like they have pieces made in every state. The F-35. If you notice, what do they actually test new weapon systems on? F-16s, because they still work. They were made back in the day. They're very primal when you look at them, and they haven't changed. F-35, they don't test new weapon systems on that. It'll break. It would cost too much to even hook it onto it. Just flying it costs too much to test things, to fly, to test weapon systems on it and stuff like that. So we're seeing an interesting time where I call it like the great settling of excess potential. Like I think the universe, the planet, our spirit, however you want to look at it, doesn't like a lack of equilibrium. It doesn't like excess potential. It doesn't like things to be imbalanced too long. And so I think like when it comes to the, like the collective West, versus like the global South of the BRICS, when I look at it, when it comes to like the munitions that, like, what you're talking about, the old gear. Unfortunately, I think, and I know this is a huge topic, but I think we're the ones with the old gear. And one also thing is, we all know that there's, conflicts going on. And you think about it, the latest space age stuff can't beat. And I know I don't want to say too much because we're on, I don't want to get us, in trouble, but it can't beat a darn near Stone Age people in a very small area. If you look at, I'll talk about one that's more, safe, is a story today, like a U.S. long-range B-2 stealth bombers target underground bunkers of Yemen's Houthi rebels. So the thing is, we're flying B-2s over, Yemen, to take out, to try to get bunkers, to try to get their stuff they have underground, because they're owning the Red Sea. So our fleets, our carriers aren't safe. Cargo ships aren't safe. If you're going to Israel, forget it. You're not going to make it. And so, you can bomb the Houthis all you want. They like being bombed. It's like their hobby. You ain't going to hurt them at all. And so there's low tech now owns the Red Sea. You look at like Lebanon, bombing northern Israel all the way down to Haifa. They're having a hard time keeping the government solvent there in Israel, because there's like, how many people, I forget the exact number, but a tremendous amount of people no longer can live in northern Israel because Hezbollah out of Lebanon is just keep shooting missiles once in a while, and they don't want to live there. And now there's 60,000 businesses that I've heard are gone, and from Israel. And along with that, absolutely zero new technology companies are moving any infrastructure there because it's just not sound. And anyway, like, we are seeing, to me, old school, I might say, like, this is kind of a weird rant, but like sort of like the old neo-colonial mindset is kind of meeting the global South that certainly resents it. And we're seeing the great return of equilibrium. All this excess potential, this kind of evil that's been happening in the world is now being, I think it's time, it's being righted. And so when I look at like the whole, you can say grand solar minimum, you look at like the magnetic pole wander, you look at, the big gas giants lining up, you look at people being aware of now archonic influence, like David was talking about, where, people are beginning to see it. They go, I just see like the archonic influence in our world leaders. I can see it. People are saying like, and people feeling funny. They're like, wow, I know things aren't right. People waking up to like, wow, our food is poisoned. Did you notice that? Like, there really is a collective awakening, I think. And unfortunately, that does not come without growing pains. And I'll just mention one more thing about, like, in this great balancing, low tech beating high tech. Israel has lost, this is a couple of months old, over 1,000 APCs, armored personnel carriers, and Markava tanks. Their best Markava, their best tank is the Markava. It's not that great, but it's okay. Anyway, the rebels, let's just say who they're fighting, that they can't beat. They didn't realize that when you make a city rubble, we learned this in World War II in Stalingrad, a city turned to rubble is the best fighting position you'll ever have. So, dumbasses. Anyway, they're getting their asses kicked because at homemade RPGs, they actually found that the Merkava was hard to get through, but if they learned that if you use two shaped charges, just the right amount, just the right speed, it goes right through those things. Low tech, somebody hopping up from behind some rubble, boom, and their tanks are gone. A couple guys just ambush them. So, and of course the mainstream media we actually don't know this is happening, but it is heavy losses. by the IDF and such. So anyway, guys, long rant, but just something sparked me there with what Ransom was saying. So I think we're living through low tech beating high tech, and countries having high tech now that didn't before, and we're the ones who kind of have the Cold War and World War II era junk. Anyway, I thought just throw it out there.
Can I add to that?
Right up your alley, man.
They have already thought about those points, and you're exactly right. The problem within the Middle East is they're not trying to actually conquer; they're just keeping destabilized the area. That's the whole point there. And then the other part of that is the U.S. military. You're exactly right. Has the smallest fleet and air force that amount of planes and assets that they've ever had. And what they're doing is they're moving over to a program called Affordable Mass. And what that means is basically instead of spending $35 million on a fighter jet, they're going to spend $500,000 to $500,000 to $1 million in these AI jets that outfly human pilots in the first place. So right now they're just testing them as wingmen, but the whole concept was all of this was in the Project for the New American Century. When they were trying to say that they needed to have the Air Force a completely anonymous AI-powered force by 2025. And we're in 2024 now, and that's exactly my point. What they're about to do is throw out all this old junk to be destroyed, and they know that things like RPGs, and we've put out Stinger missiles and all these things through funding ISIS and Al-Qaeda. We've given them $85 billion worth of more equipment to have. We had the big weapons transfer in Benghazi that was supposed to be an assassination. I mean, all of these different things. So we know all of these weapons are floating around out there. And that was for complete destabilization to move masses of people out of the way. And now they're at the point where they're going to have World War III, not really to win it. That's kind of my point. They want to destroy the old system, and they know that and what's funny about that, what you said, is now they're combining basically what you said, a more of a Stone Age tech with explosives, and then adding it to artificial intelligence to increase its destructive output. But the big players, like you mentioned, China is going all in this. And they have one of the biggest manufacturing centers for that type of weaponry in the world. Russia also has been investing heavily in China's program of creating war drones. So that's the exact direction that they're going. And, without destroying all of these old things, these MiGs, these F-16s that we're still selling to other countries. Matter of fact, where I live right now, F-16s are flying back and forth, and they're teaching Ukrainian pilots how to fly them, and that's completely older stuff. And what's even more funny is that the F-35 is the one that had the chip problem from overseas parts. And whenever that first came out, I was talking to Air Force pilots that flew the FY-22, and they were telling me that F-35 was complete junk and was meant to be a disposable jet to sell to other nations. So it's going to be weird. It's almost like the guy Joel Skousen talks about, that we're going to have this little war and then everybody breaks out their next level toys, but that would be post reset. And that would be to enforce all of their new stuff. But this idea that people in third world can outdo these big militaries is kind of funny, because it's like the idea of the Border Patrol stopping people from coming across the border. They have all of these big drones with FLIR technology. It's out in the middle of the desert. You can see these people like Christmas lights walking around, moving around. And, we don't use our current technology to its full potential because there's geopolitical reasons why we purposely lose or slow down wars. It's all for agenda driven rather than winning a war. I mean, even Vietnam was kind of in that direction. It was started by a false flag, over control of a drug trade. We had no real reason to be there, and we just kept, insisting that we were going to send our young into the meat grinder. So it's kind of like that situation now. Weirdly enough, it seems like all of the nations don't really care what happens to the populations of their countries.
I could tell you another reason why Vietnam, we were extracting their oil at the same time we were fighting that war offshore. American oil companies went in and just drilled right in and took that oil out. Once they reached peak oil in the offshore fields of Vietnam, suddenly, magically, the war ended. Isn't that great? But if I could throw something out here for both of you. So you all keep talking about they're just getting rid of disposable tech. Because I was reading a report here in Germany. This comes off nzz.ch out of Deutschland. Wind power in Germany. Big promises, small yields. So this comes back into they're promising us all this electrical generation from windmills and also from solar panels. But they're showing us Germany's wind turbines have an estimated capacity utilization or usage of barely more than 30%. So, and it's only 15% of Germany's wind turbines. And what's interesting, it's supposed to be in the ones that are onshore, just, I should say, off coast, barely producing 30% of what they were rated for, promised for. So they're having these massive shortfalls in electrical production. So when we're talking about this antiquated tech already, we're never going to have enough copper to do this transition. Forget the rare earth minerals and all these things you're hearing. There's just simply not going to be enough copper. So again, this whole bait and switch, like, what was it about getting us to this point of putting up all these scrappy windmills that kill all the birds, all these solar panels which blind birds, blind insects, change local regions into a more of a hot spot? How many millions of acres of forest have been cut down, orchards to make way for these solar panels? And we're going to go to new tech, just like you said, Ransom. Once this war is over, they're coming out with the electric Avidics craft. We're going to be parent dev motors in every home, although you probably have to pay a usage fee for it. There's nothing for free, But this whole new paradigm moving into a faster vibratory field, the old world, the time of the czars shall finish, like it did. The time of the czars had finished, and we moved into nation states. That whole World War I era was the break free, install radio communications across the planet, bring in quote unquote medicine for everybody, and get us on centralized systems away from the rural countryside. That was that chapter opening. That chapter is coming to a close now. Fast forward 110 years. We're talking about epochs of time here, century plus, but for sure we are at the end of this. I would say just because frequency of our solar system is changing, the sun, it's behaving strangely. I was talking with an older gentleman, name's Thomas, really friendly guy, really super intelligent, ham radio operator, but he knows his stuff. And he was telling me, and I was asking him, hey, do you remember when the sun was yellow? And he's like, yeah, it's kind of white now. I was like, yeah, sun's getting a little more color tingy changes. So if we're watching the sun go from yellow to white, then most people are understanding there's some sort of change in here. Now we're watching the deserts across the planet begin to turn green, and we're watching the Amazon go into a mega drought. And we've seen some peer-reviewed research through the years here that show there's a correlation between drying of the Amazon and moisture increasing across the North Africa. And we also see in the Gobi Desert, as today I was looking at some images, the Gobi Desert also just turning incredibly green. So we're definitely at this point where some of these really lush areas are going to start to dry out, and food producing areas are going to get drier, where these areas that didn't have much moisture are going to start to produce food and grow. So I'm just trying to correlate it here that old tech's done with. Like, we're not going to use windmills and solar panels anymore. We just can't, and it's not efficient. 30% of what your output projections were, that's really that somebody should be fired at that point. You should lose your job. You should lose your appointment, whatever it is. If you're 70% off, you don't have you deserve nothing. You're that inept to come in and do a job. You don't deserve to have that position. You need to be taken out of there. But, again, I digress, whoever wants to answer. But I think We're definitely moving to a new tech system here. I mean, they gave us these garbage windmills and things to try to drive us to a global tax, but people are waking up that none of it's working correctly at the stated efficiencies it was, and now they're going, whoa, 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 why would you put more inefficient stuff that doesn't work out there? And people are finally waking up to it. So that, at least that's a glimmer of hope in my mind.
Right. I just wanted to make one real quick comment. It seems like, all these programs are meant to fail, like you're talking about. Even with the F-35s, I was showing the audience, they're having troubles bombing as much as they want to because they can't get just-in-time shipping, and then there's legal battles about the parts for their fancy F-35, and then at the same time, they're dealing with they can't keep up with the amount of ammunition they're trying to use. So they are going to have to use men, and if you've seen in recent times, or the last week or something, they had a bunch of losses because they're running out of tech as fast as they're trying to buy it. So it's up to foreign nations to supply that war, right? So it's almost like they gave them those junk planes in order for this exact scenario to happen.
Yeah, Craig, what are you thinking, military man? I know you got some thoughts and ideas on that.
Well, I think something that was said, governments don't care about their people. And I think that is something that's been, an evolution of, we can say, well, when did that start? It depends. People can look at it a lot of different ways. But I would definitely say we're at a point right now where you do see it, especially now with the, many conflicts we have around the world. I kind of think that it's not that all governments don't care about their people. It's that it's just so obvious that some do not, and it's one of the things that maybe is the ultimate prepper weapon. And this is one of the things that, I've never liked these two terms, like normie and then like a person who's awake, but unfortunately they fit. So until there's better definitions, I'll have to just use those. But awake is really it's fundamentally a spiritual thing. It's not really intellectual, but it is a spiritual thing. And as we know that there's a cosmic energy supercharge happening now, we're getting so much energy from the sun that, like here in the desert, it's killing lots of old growth trees at an alarming rate this year. We have trees that, if anything can stand outside and survive in this damn, furnace, then it's pretty tough. And so, old trees that have been here forever are, getting lots and lots of dead big branches. It burns the saguaros. It's crazy. The ground gets too hot and it burns the roots of the saguaros and they die. So we're seeing something like, a lot of saguaros, if they're big, it's 600 years old. So things that have been there for a long time it happened last year. It's accelerating. It's happening this year. And so we're seeing the cosmic energy supercharge, as I like to think of it, from the sun. People are feeling it. They're feeling that awakening energy within themselves. And those that are running with that, it's just their, call it karmic luck, Normies aren't feeling it. They just don't quite get it. They're oblivious. But for those that are, maybe that's one of our best things to know at this time, is that the gas giants are aligning. We are going through a cosmic energy supercharge. Sacha Dobler, I believe, is his name. He wrote some books on that, and they're really worth it. He gets into how there's always been an incredible amount of technology and enlightenment. There's been so much evolution for humanity during the Grand Solar Minimum. So, we were starving, but we figured a lot out, actually. So we're hitting kind of an evolutionary leap right now, and it's especially those that are awake that are going to be able to do that. They're going to be a part of that. So governments don't care about their people might be one of the most essential things to realize. And if you look around and you don't see it, I don't know what to tell a person, because I look at the advantage that gives you, because now you're no longer hoping it's going to work out. Like when we, or thinking that there's a savior that's going to come save us. Like what gets me is when we look at the flooding that happened in eastern Tennessee and what North and South Carolina, I think it was. Like we look at that. You look at the people in Nashville, a very lefty town, who kind of had an awakening moment when, oh yeah, you're flooded. I don't really give a shit. It's too bad. We have to. Lindsey Graham himself, okay, a total soft around the edges, little wimpy warmonger. He said he was on he was on the news, and he was on the news because of the disaster. They wanted to talk to a senator, and he goes, oh yeah, it's really unfortunate. I've been running around, looking at all this destruction and suffering people, and I gotta tell you, I'm tired. I'm tired from driving around. I can't wait to get back to DC where I can, I don't know, get back to my adrenochrome and stuff like that. And I don't like being out here with all these suffering people. I don't give a shit. What we need to think about is Israel. Yeah. And he actually said that, and you're like, dude, you don't give a shit, man. You beyond don't care, And I would say that once people realize that that's the norm, now your family's may disown you, but when they're like, oh my gosh, you got to vote for this person or that person as this election comes up, and you're like, you know what? Neither one makes a damn bit of difference. It's just a different kind of like style of destruction. I mean, whatever, So I think that's an incredible advantage, to realize the governments don't care about the people, because then you realize that you're on your own. The government's your adversary. It's not going to come help you. It doesn't want you to grow food. It's going to say, do you have chickens in your backyard? Well, we're going to come and, take those from you because, whatever, So like an example, there's so many examples of it, but you feel it, you get it. And I think that that is an incredible advantage, just that people realize that. Then you start building community. You start to everything that you guys are doing, everything that we're doing here in Arizona, and I hope that in the next soon a lot of us are living closer, and we are building communities in similar areas in the same area. I do see and I've asked many people about this. Like one area is what is it, Marlboro? I think they call it, like in sort of, it's a little bit, it's south of Nashville, I think southeast, and it was kind of the middle of nowhere, but a lot of sort of like awake people are beginning to congregate there, and they have been for like 20 years. It's a growing area of kind of like prepper-minded people, kind of like where David DuByne is living on the east of that. So in the country, we're seeing people naturally who are awake led to go live somewhere. So I think that really we're getting ready for the breakup of the country anyway, because we're sort of going to those places where our people are going to be. And I don't know about y'all, but I wish for the worst. I like give it to it because it's terrible. I know there's going to be like suffering, etc. But there's also going to be enlightenment. There's going to be what's next, and I really can't help what the background players are going to go through. We do what we can, but in the end, if you were fortunate enough to be born with, to have come across that awakened perspective, that awakened energy, you've got your work to do, and you're intuitively led. I mean, you think you're in charge, but the next thing you know, you end up living somewhere you never expected, and you realize this is where I have to be to play my role in what's happening. So when the country breaks into pieces, I mean, as in like areas kind of break off into their own sort of sub Americas, I think will happen. You want to be in the one that you agree with, and we're starting to do that. You can see a migration of people. And one thing I'll throw out there is just this, government's not caring about their people. There was this story I saw on Fox Business today. California oil refinery announces closure after Newsom signs more regulations. So not to pick on California, because I love California, but Newsom, I'll pick on Newsom because he's a friggin' sleaze stack. But like Phillips 66 to close Los Angeles area oil refinery by the end of 2025. And if you look at this article, that is a friggin' huge oil refinery, and people get into it. It's like it's in Wilmington, California. I'm not sure where that's at, but it's huge, and people are looking at like the economic. So they basically make up some BS, environmental regulations, whatever. It's like they don't like it because like California wants to be. I guess Newsom wants to be like zero. What is it? Carbon neutral or like zero, whatever they call that right now. And so, like, the government of that state just decides that we're going to kick this refinery out because we're going to make some BS. It hurts the environment, and we want to be like we don't like things like refineries or gas or whatever. You peasants should all drive Teslas, I guess, or something like that. And the damage I was reading the comments on the article at the bottom, which there's just hundreds and hundreds, and a lot of them just talk about the devastation to the economy of that state of California. And it's kind of like when you're talking about Germany not having power. It used to be it used to manufacture. I mean, there's factories that didn't even stop during World War II that are ancient. Things that have been made there that now are not. And you talk about governments not caring about their people, like when what was it, senile Biden stood right next to Olaf Scholz, and he said, that pipeline's not going to happen, and like there's little Scholz just sitting there, like just kind of grins. Oh yeah, we know who blew that up. So it's kind of like Germany just takes it. They go, yeah, sure, blow our pipeline up. I mean, we blew that up because the country was suffering. They were going to do business. With Russia, they weren't going to shut that pipeline down, and we showed them, and so now they're really suffering. It's destroyed their ability to manufacture, and the German government. I'm sure what do you really say? Like, you look at what happened in Germany. The Nord Stream was blown up. Now they're screwed. The disaster's only beginning. Forget it. You're not going to get a BMW. If you want one, you got to buy an old one. And, California oil refinery announces closure. This thing is huge. I send you guys links. I could share it, I guess. But it's basically, the thing is huge. It's in Wilmington, California. It's the size of a city, and the government can just decide, yeah, we're going to close that because, we're carbon neutral, zero, whatever they want to call it. Gas is dirty, so we're gonna close that. And you start thinking like, wow, how the government can just decide just to destroy the economy of a state just like that. Not that this will take out the whole state, but this time so many other things. So anyway, kind of a rambling topic, but governments don't care about their people could be like the ultimate spiritual warrior and prepper knowledge, because then you're going to stop living that way. And I tell you, I see zealots on the left, I see zealots on the right who think that one of these asshole candidates cares about them and is going to save the country, and the other one's going to destroy it. And I'm like, suckers, you're it's like, whatever, you're really missing the point. You're really missing the plot. The government doesn't care about you. It shuts your oil refineries down. It kills you. It puts you in it kills you in wars. It does all this stuff. It's like, anyway, I'm kind of just rambling now, but that's a very vague point, I guess. But to know that the governments don't care about their people and they don't care about you, and you got to build your, awakened community of spiritual warriors, and you need to just basically live from that perspective, and you're going to be intuitively led. This cosmic energy supercharge, I know it's going to be a lot of destruction in the world, but at the same time, I call it the archons, right? The dark ones, the demonic forces. They are so powerful in the earth right now that the bringing back to a sense of equilibrium, a great writing. I'm all for it. I bring the disaster. Back at you guys.
Well, you need to work on your y'all, because I heard you try to say y'all. You need to work on the pronunciation of y'all.
Y'all. I try.
Yeah, too much L on the end of it. You use a transplant. You ain't got y'all. Got to get some mustard greens and y'all coming in for the iced tea on the porch now.
Well, maybe they'll let me go if I open carry an old Colt revolver or something like that. They'll be like, we'll let you go.
Oh, you got to conceal carry down here, man. You can't be opening it up. People will be chastising you, put that away. Everybody can see it. You don't want everybody to know you're carrying. That's the whole thing. If you're going to disguise that, that's the whole point. Is you don't want everybody to know, because you're the first one they're going after. because you're the threat. But
you guys want a
everybody's
Halloween
good.
story?
Yeah, go.
Yeah.
Well, I was just thinking about what you were talking about happening in California, and I was putting up an article on there that was talking about the German people are more moving back to combustion engines, and they don't want the electric car, which is, a lot of places are dealing with the same thing. So let's fast forward, like say a decade or something. You live in California. They've mandated almost all of the gasoline away, so you can't even have a gasoline lawnmower or leaf blower. Your car has to do this and that. Now everybody has all these electric cars, and then all the power goes out, and there's no food delivered to California all of a sudden. How are people even going to transport themselves to a better area? The answer: they're not, right? Because they've given up all of their real ability to travel, and now everything is all electric, which is not going to pan out for them when there's no electricity, right? So all these people trying to drive Teslas and all of this stuff, it just doesn't work when the power's out. So what happens if you don't have a backup? So you're going to have millions of poor Californians that gave up their ability to drive a gasoline-powered car and then not be able to do anything, not even evacuate. I mean, think about that. Say the big one hit, maybe like the Cascadian subduction zone or something has a giant earthquake, and this tsunami just rolls down Portland, Seattle, San Francisco, Los Angeles. The power's out. No one can even evacuate because they gave up all their gasoline-powered cars. Is that not a nightmare scenario? And it seems like that's what they're trying to create everywhere in the Western world, is the ability, the not having the ability to do anything, not even evacuate.
There's your situational awareness. How much can you carry with you? And then going through that zone where it would be grid down would be nightmarish at best. You'd have to literally escape from New York and all the, gangs and everything. I don't know how really far you'd be able to get trying to get yourself out without a vehicle. Really, that'd be nightmarish, I think.
Yeah. Mobility is great, but that's a tough thing. You never know when your area is going to be somewhere that you don't want to be. So I guess we have to really, depend on that, cosmic energy supercharge, energy that we're getting, that like Sasha Dobler wrote about, just that this is a time of enlightenment, and this is a time of great evolutionary leaps, like Grand Slow Minimum and Evolutionary Leaps that was written, and I really think our greatest thing, one of our greatest things, is just to follow that intuition. Because I was looking at back over the last couple of years and I just realized it really hit me how much I've been intuitively led. Like how I thought that, I'm the one in charge. I want to do this. I want to do that. I'm working on this and I'm working on that. And I am a free will, believer. I think that we do manifest our own reality, et cetera, et cetera. But, there is something, the whole I and the Father one, but the Father is greater than I. There is a broader perspective that we have that is guiding us at this time. And because we don't know what they're going to throw at us. I mean, I would say that, living in a dense population area right now, maybe I wouldn't suggest it, but some people kind of have to. But are you ready to, haul ass? Do you want to have like multiple properties? Do you want to have kind of like a team around the country where you all can kind of be like, Mad Max and like get to the area where it's still sane? I mean, could we see states get extremely draconian in their, laws and their, regulations and such like that? I mean, that's why I kind of think we might, break into kind of like mega regions and stuff like that. But all the same, yeah. What do you guys think? Is our, natural intuition, use that awakening that is happening and, get in, community with others that are in the same place, and then just realize that, wow, I mean, we can plan all we want. I mean, you can stack the gold, the silver. You can have, multiple income streams. You name it. You can have your bug out vehicle. You can have multiple properties. You can, whatever. But I don't know. It's like Buckminster Fuller said. We worry about things and we plan for disasters, but it's always what gets you is never what you plan for. It's what sideswipes you that you never saw coming. And I think that our only way to avoid that is going to be our intuition, and feeling ourselves led. So do you guys feel like over the last couple of years you have felt yourself led, and you start thinking like, I didn't even want to move over there, but then I did. Now I realize this is a good place to be. I'm really, like, more than I ever have been, going deep, meditating, getting into the center, and just feeling, okay, guide me, because it's working. And I come up with things, and I end up places and meeting people and being involved in things that I never planned. I never did, but they happened, and here we are talking on this show tonight. You know what I mean? So follow your
now,
intuition.
Craig, we're coming to the last minute, and speaking of being led, hate to cut you off, but I'm going to lead you right over to buymeacoffee.com/civilization cycle. If you like this type of content, please support us over there. And for this last 30 seconds, remember, civilizationcycle.com. Head on over, jump in, put your email in there. We'll get you the show notes on a weekly. So again, you have those bullet points to continue to do some of your own research with. But Craig, lead us out, man. Had to throw that little, plug in there before we ran out of time.
Oh, that's all. Thanks for having me on. And everybody, meditate. And next time, let us know what you were led to do,
Understand more about electrogravitics and creating power with magnets spinning in your home from the Earth's magnetic field. Until next time, it's DuByne, Ransom Godwin. Craig Simpson signing off here. See you next week. Bye.
Thank you for listening to Revolution.